Hi, and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about several things that I think are just wrong or being done badly with the Fender Stratocaster and Squier Stratocaster lines, the current ones. So we're not going to be talking about guitars from 5 years ago, 10 years ago. We're going to be talking serial numbers 2023 to 2024, including the new standard. It's a 2024 serial number, so it's going to fall into this list. You saw in the beginning of the video, I actually had 14 Strats out. I needed a place to sit, so I put the 1976 Strat away. Had it out just so you know I still have it. That'll be relevant in a minute. Over here, I also have an Eric Clapton Strat right behind me. And it's really out just to show you that I have it because I haven't done a video on it yet, but I have referenced it a few times. So before we get to some of the things that I think are wrong with the Strat, plus a few other things, the reason I have all these guitars out, I have 13 Strats out behind me. Squier and Fender. In fact, I'll move out of the way for a second. And what these are, with the exception of the Clapton Strat, the other 12 are all 2023, 2024 serial numbers. We have 11 unique models because I do have 2 Squier affinities. I bought the charcoal frost strictly so I could put the 69 pickups in it. So all these are current line Strats. Now, bring that up for 2 reasons. Number one, so you can see that I did what I said I was going to do last year, really dive into Strats, with last year being the 70th anniversary. And I was going to, do a heavy comparison, keep them around and really look at how these guitars last, how they measure up. And that goes into point 2, going from my last 2 videos. Something that came up a lot was, well, you need to compare it to the CV, you need to compare it to this or that. Guys, I have them right here. Despite, using measurements and factory specs, the most important thing is when you lay your hands on it, how it feels to you. And I do have all these guitars to compare it to, and I literally would play this one, then play this one, then play this one, play this one again. Same thing with all these. I did it with the entire Squier line and up to the player, and to me that neck feels like they took a player 1 and a 60 CV and went mush, and actually got a pretty cool neck because mine has a killer finish. I don't know what you guys got, but anyway, when I say I'm comparing these guitars, these aren't guitars that I lay my hands on a lot and have a feeling about, or something I went to the store and played every model for a few minutes and checked on or gave my opinion on. They're not guitars that came in and I had for a few days and went back out. These are guitars that I own. Nobody helped me. Fender didn't do anything. Squier didn't do anything. None of the music stores. Just like I told you back in July, this is the inheritance I got from my mom passed. I used to buy guitars to keep the channel going for 2 more years. And these are the Strats that I have bought so far. I have others, guitars that aren't Strats, but when I review guitars and stuff, I don't usually just send them right back out. I do not have the debut here because that's an exception. The Amazon debut, it's face value what it is. I said in the review, if you can go better, go better. Squier, I'm not even sure that line needs to be there, the debut, but it was fun for 120 bucks. Now, I have some problems with these Fender Strats and the Squiers. And first problem, everyone across the board has, except my Ultra 2. My American Vintage 2 has it. My Player Plus, my Player 2, they all have this. And I don't know if this is because of the multi pieces of wood, but there are wood seams showing in all of them, some of them within a month of buying them. Now, these are kept in cases. If they came in through the mail, they were allowed to warm up. But you can see the wood seams in at least 1 seam on every one of these guitars, if not 2 or 3. Now, my American Vintage 2 and my 70th anniversary player, it's only a single seam on the back so far. All the others, they have at least 1, if not 2 or 3 seams on the front that you can see very easily. They shouldn't do that. I do see some Kramers that have had that. I've seen a couple Jacksons that had that. I saw a Charvel not long ago that had that, but not like on every one I touched. It was a couple here and there. All these guitars have this. And I believe at least part of that comes from using, from what you guys have said, too many pieces of wood. And that is definitely an issue. If you look at this Squier, I mean, come on, we got at least 4 pieces of wood going on here with several tones, and this is a natural finish one. This should not, I mean, it does look interesting with the racetrack, but this shouldn't look like this. You should never be buying a burst or a natural finish guitar where you've got 2 tones of wood. where you've got, and this is my second problem, besides multi-pieces with the seam showing, you've got this problem of putting in wood and it doesn't match. I mean, you've got bursts that have grain going this way and then grain going this way, or heavily figured and then no figuring. You've got, sometimes this half will be light like this and this half will be dark like this. It looks like crap. It's lazy. Maybe on a $250 guitar, having these multi-pieces and painting it is okay if you can keep the seams from popping and showing and then fairly quickly. But even then, I think most of us Strat players remember a time when 2 and 3 piece was the standard, and they could keep the 3 pieces from popping seams. I mean, my Made in Mexico standard I had for 11 or 12 years, never had that problem, and it got gigged. It got knocked over by dogs. I smoked around it. Stuff none of these guitars face, and it never had that problem. My Made in Japan never had that problem. The old 96 American never had that problem. This wasn't this big of an issue before. Either issue with the woods, the wood grain or the multi-body pieces like this. It's out of hand, and it's got to be fixed. I'm not here to tell you what to do about it. These are just problems if you buy these guitars, especially, and I said I don't know about the Ultra 2. I can't speak for the Performer or the Professional 2 because I haven't bought those two yet. The Pro 2 I haven't bought simply because I wanted the Les Paul and sacrifices had to be made. The Performer I haven't bought because of one of my pet peeves that's actually further down this list is putting the big paddle headstock, the 70s headstock, post-CBS headstock on an American Strat. I don't like it. I don't like the headstock to begin with, except on an actual correct vintage model or a replica. I like it on my 1976 Strat. I didn't mind it when I saw it on the Venteras. But to me, I don't even think of it as that era. When I see that, I think Affinity. I think most of us do. So to put that big headstock on the American Performer, it's the whole reason I haven't bought it. It is the reason I didn't buy it. It's ugly with that headstock, and that's a personal opinion, but I think a lot of people actually have that opinion when it comes to that headstock. I've heard it a lot, read it a lot. So that was on the problem list. We'll make that 3. I did them out of order. Sorry, guys. Problem 4, price. Starting with the classic Vibe and up, I think every Fender is at least $75 to $150 too high. That varies from model to model. But I think especially with these kind of problems, because if you buy one of these, you're going to have the seam showing. It's going to happen, guys. And at like $800, go buy a used one for $5 if you're going to deal with that, or another, maybe an older Fender. Because if you buy one of these new, you are going to have this problem. I'm not saying don't buy it. Buy whatever you like. Value of a guitar is on the buyer. But be very aware of this fact, because for me, that's something I really dislike. When I am done going over all these Strats, I will sell off most of them. And some of them that I probably would have kept will go simply because I can see all the seams. Now, another issue with these guys, besides the price, fretboards. That's fine. I mean, I don't actually like Laurel on anything. You hit $500, I start having a problem with Laurel fretboards. I just bought a Les Paul. You'll see it in a couple weeks. It's a standard 60s. I was very surprised that a $650 Les Paul had Laurel. My old one had rosewood. And I know you're not going to get rosewood on all of them on the lower lines, but I do think rosewood, including on the standard, I think rosewood should be on all the Fenders. Now, the bigger issue I have with the fretboards is that there's a lot of models right now where, like, we'll use the standard. If you want this red, but you want the Laurel fretboard instead of the maple, then you have to get HSS configuration. I want SSS. To get that, I had to go with a maple. I would have had to go with a maple fretboard, and that's not the only one that does that. The Ultra series was that way with their reds. There's quite a few out there, and again, that's lazy. That's got to be hurting sales, because some players won't sacrifice and go with another color or switch up the fretboard they want. They'll simply go somewhere else. And there's no reason not to be offering this to your players. And I mean even down to the Squier line. There is no reason that every color and pickup option shouldn't have the option of the dark or light fretboard. It's just the way it is. It's not that big of a deal for them to do. So those are some of the big issues that I have currently with the Stratocaster line. And I do have some other minor things, like I don't really care for the mixing and matching of modern and vintage. A lot of players don't care for the split shaft tuners. I like them, but more so with a 6-point tremolo versus a 2-point tremolo. And, but that's just my personal preference. It's like my Ultra 2. In my hands, the modern D with the 10 to 14 inch compound radius kind of reminds me more of my Charvels and one of the Jacksons I have than it does a Strat. It still feels great, but it is a little less Stratty feeling to me than I would have liked. But again, that's a personal preference. Them moving into a little more modern radiuses with 12-inch and compound radiuses, as long as they keep at least a 9.5 available to us, I think most players will be happy with that. But I am worried that they might get a little too modern. Like, this is pretty much their high-end guitar with the American Ultra 2, and I would much rather have pretty much any other Fender as far as the neck profile goes. But that's me. And I'm sure I could get used to this. It's not bad to play at all, but again, that's a personal pick. I don't want the Strats to get too modern on too broad a scale. Have a modern line, that's great. I like the way the Americans are done right now. You have your Performer, which is more vintage spec. You have your Professional 2, which is a more modern spec, and then you have your Ultra 2, which is straight up modern. So, and that's pretty cool. I just, I don't want to start seeing 12-inch radiuses and up across the board. That would break my heart. Because when you get a Strat, you are looking for certain things, at least certain players are. I like a chime and a growl in my pickups, and I want to fill a 10-inch radius or less, in all honesty. Now, some things that were said in the last video, all Fenders are, and they were very untrue things that if you're looking and you could buy a used guitar and you believe these, you could end up missing out. So real quick, and I know a lot of you guys know these, you don't need to put in the comments, we know this. I know most of you know these, but since some didn't, let's hit it real quick. All Fenders have bone nuts. My Ultra 2 doesn't have it. My players don't have it. There's plenty that don't have bone nuts. You need to, with any guitar, you always need to check your specs for the year and the model. Now, all Fenders have the original contour body logo. If you look right here, I don't have it on my Player Plus. I don't have it on my Ultra 2 down here. Guys, there's models that don't have it. Again, check your stuff. Now, third one was all Strats have 22 frets. This is very much a modern appointment, and not all modern. Most of the modern line, like the Player line, have them, but there's still vintage spec out there with 21 frets. My American Vintage 2 over here, my Vintera 2 right here. There's a lot of good Fenders that are still 21 fret. It's not guaranteed that that's not a Fender. And finally was that Fenders that are made under contract aren't Fenders. Guys, that's how the Mexican plant came into existence, as well as the Japanese guitars. 85, they contracted with Fujijin. Fujijin started building guitars in Japan. Then they went and built the plant in, literally Fujijin built the plant in Mexico. Fender's building, Fender's money, Fujijin's people and training. The plant management was heavily Japanese, and the upper management was Fender. And that got you your Mexican standard Strat. So contract it's happened before. It doesn't mean it's not Fender. To my knowledge, U.S. Fenders have never been contracted in any way, shape, form, or fashion, and of course shouldn't be. But those are some points that were brought up last time that people needed to know, especially the bone nut and the original contour body. You cannot use those as an indicator of a real Fender. That could burn you really easily. Now, I've covered some problems I have with these guitars and some things that came up last time. Don't get me wrong, but I still love Fender Strats. I'm always going to love Strats. There are problems. There's been problems before. There'll be problems again. But right now, I think Fender's a little on the greedy side and a little on the lazy side. And some people have accused me of doing these Strats to try and kiss up to Fender. Guys, I'm 48 years old. I could give a crap about Fender. They can kiss my axe. I've dealt with Fender twice in the past professionally. Back in the early 2000s, I was a parts and accessories dealer. They're kind of a pain in the butt to work with sometimes. They can be great, but if Fender wants to send me a guitar to review, awesome. Anybody, hey, great. Not what I'm here for. It's just not. So, while I love the Fender Strat, And I like a lot of these guitars. There's problems that you've just got to think about when you buy it. You know, do you want to spend $800 on a Player 2 and to be able to see the seam lines in a few months? Is that something that you can live with? Even used, do you want to spend say $500 or $550 used and have that? Those are questions you have to answer for yourself. But overall, I'm always going to love my Strats, just like I'm always going to love my Ibanez. There's just, or the RG550s and our RG line in general. There's just certain guitars we all love. You know, certain people love Les Pauls. Certain people love Kramers. It's okay to like what you like. It really is. And it's okay to like more than one kind. You can like a Fender and like a Gibson. It really is okay. In fact, I encourage it. All right, guys, well, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like this kind of content, please click like and subscribe. Click the bell icon to stay notified. Leave me some comments and suggestions. I would love to hear from you. And until next time, keep playing.